everyone, my name is Colleen Harper and I'm a solutions architect on the digital team here at CDI. I just want to take a moment to thank you for joining me today here at the CDITechSummitIII. I'm going to spend about the next 20 minutes or so talking to you about how you can accelerate your DevSecOps journey with a value stream delivery platform like GitLab. We'll talk about some of the market trends that we're seeing in DevSecOps and highlight some of the drivers as called out by recent analysts findings, as well as some information our GitLab partner has curated through research and surveys. So if you're CDI friendly, you know we've been promoting digital transformation for a few years now. And the phrase digital transformation has become so popular, it's probably commonplace at, I don't know, dinner tables. Okay, maybe not, but it's certainly a hot topic. And if you've been listening closely, you probably also have noticed that we've been hyper-focused on expanding our DevOps practice as part of that. We at CDI have made significant investments in building our DevOps arm out, and a major contributor of that was our acquisition of Kintyre. Brian Kennedy and his team came to us with a great deal of expertise in DevOps, specifically around the likes of Splunk and GitLab, but really regardless of the tool or tool set, what we know is that implementing DevOps requires a complete shift in terms of technology and process and culture. And the benefits of this shift are staggering. If you tuned into our CTO, Will Huber's Move Fast and Don't Break Things DevOps conversation last September, you may recall him highlighting an alarming statistic that IDC put out, quoting that more applications will be deployed in the next 5 years than in the last 40 combined. And in order for this to happen, we need to speed up the cycle time, right? And now that DevOps has entered its second decade, the focus has expanded beyond product delivery. It's no longer just about dev and ops, but more about removing constraints between the business and its customers with a focus on delivering not just new features and products, but also value. 7 years ago, Mark Andreessen said software is eating the world. And he's right. Every successful company is reliant on software. And since then, that conversation has shifted. And he was quoted to say, cycle time compression may be the most underestimated force in determining winners and losers in technology. And this is really because with each iteration, you have an opportunity to deliver real value to your customer. Competitiveness really depends on how fast teams can deliver code, which is to say how quickly we can create customer value. We see that software is accelerating at the rate of innovation in all industries, increasing competitiveness and resulting in competitors emerging faster, right? We think about this with product development teams. They're adopting new methodologies to help them iterate faster. And we saw this with the shift of waterfall to agile, allowing teams to better respond to dynamic and moving needs of the business. And then growing out of that movement, DevOps has emphasized the need to not only consider the code, but the delivered service that customers actually use. And we kind of saw this with Dockers and Kubernetes, which made possible iterations at a speed and scale that were previously impossible for most companies. So hopefully by now you're asking yourself, what are we doing to keep up with our competition? And is it enough? Where am I, or where is my company in this DevOps transformation? And what this slide here highlights are the different stages of adoption within DevOps. We see that most starting points are typically in the source code management and continuous integration space. And really, when speaking to most of our customers, we find that they're pretty mature when it comes to SCM. It's likely that your company has a tool for code review and collaboration to enhance the developer experience and their productivity. And then next up in terms of maturity and adoption is CI. From what we're hearing, many of our clients seem to be fairly comfortable in this space with automated build and test pipelines in place that help with quality control without impacting time and speed. But what really seems to be lagging behind with customers is the security and continuous delivery aspect of this adoption journey. Customers have started to shift left with security, and they're still hesitant to step into continuous delivery. But The good thing is they seem to truly be aware of this, and we are starting to see a shift left. I'm sure you'll hear Will Huber talk about that a number of times throughout today, but we are noticing that folks are picking up on that and starting to adopt that theory. For example, Tech Beacon released an article speaking to their predictions for DevOps earlier this year, and they stated that in 2021, security and DevOps will be more critical than ever. Analytics, AI, machine learning will continue to disrupt both dev and ops, and organizations will tightly focus on value and value stream management. More so, in GitLab's fourth annual Global DevOps Survey, they were excited to see that customers were reporting nearly 50% of them were running static application security testing and dynamic application security testing scans, which is wonderful. It's really proof that the industry is shifting left to identify vulnerabilities earlier in the build of the code and writing of the code, whereas compared to historically, they were with application scanners, they were really only catching those problems just before the product was shipping, which was causing delays and an increase in cost, right? Well, this is all great. We're still seeing that companies that are investing and adopting in their DevOps practice, and they're still kind of missing the mark in some areas, right? Despite having spent almost $4 billion on DevOps software last year, more than half the time spent on DevOps is wasted in logistics and repeatable tasks. And although some aspects of the lifecycle have been automated, it's not really moving the dial. In fact, almost 90% of organizations have already adopted DevOps and are disappointed with the results, according to 2017 Gartner report. While improvements have certainly been made for specific KPIs like deployment frequency and change failure rate, ultimately the full transformation process of DevOps has not yet been realized. And even though we've implemented DevOps, it's not working how it should. And I'm going to talk about why in just a sec. We believe it has something to do with the fragmented tools and toolchain complexities that exist in today's environment. Often when you see most DevOps visualizations, whether it's in textbook or marketing copy, it's usually represented as a left to right diagram of the stages, or even an infinity diagram. That one's pretty popular, right? Which is the right way to think about the process. It's not necessarily, though, the right way to think about what the tools actually look like. And oftentimes it looks a lot more like this slide here. You've got tools for project planning, code creation, CI, monitoring, essentially everything you need to take the idea and turn it into software, which then goes into the hands of users. And these are just some of the tools that are potentially used at each stage on this screen. But the chaining together of these tools comes at a cost of integration complexity. Right? When you think about it, you really need resources to design, build, and maintain the integrations, manage the upgrades, and establish high availability and disaster recovery for each one. They're brittle and can fail. Setting up a new project or troubleshooting and optimizing an existing project becomes difficult and is really too slow for today's demands. So this tool set, or this tool chain rather, only serves to reinforce silos that we're trying to break down in the name of DevOps. Instead of being able to collaborate together, their different tools are really putting them in different workspaces. So if you're asking yourself, how can we kind of help to solve some of these key problems to release faster and with confidence and get the end product safely to the customer, delivered to the customer, for consumption? Well, we think we have a solution for you, and we think that GitLab does a pretty stellar job at it. So a little bit of background on GitLab. The company was incorporated in 2014. It's relatively new. There's over 1,200 employees across 65 countries today, and they became a federal entity in 2018. There's been broad adoption of this platform with over 100,000 organizations that are on GitLab today with millions of users, and they really own 70% of the self-managed DevOps repository market, which is excellent. And then lastly, there's a really strong community. As with many DevOps products, it's an open source model. There are over 2,500 code contributors and over 10,000 total contributors, which is pretty impressive. And we're not the only ones to really recognize the value and upwards trajectory of GitLab. They've been called out by IDC as an innovator for agile code development technologies and tools supporting open developer platforms in 2018 and 19. And then more recently, Gartner listed them as a visionary in their Magic Quadrant for enterprise agile planning tools. But what's most exciting for GitLab was the Forrester Wave for cloud native continuous integration tools. In Q3 of 2019, GitLab was named a leader in the space, up there with the likes of Google, Microsoft, and Amazon Web Services. If you're being recognized and compared to those tech giants, you're certainly doing something right. So congratulations, GitLab. And while we're on the topic of research and analytics, I want to highlight something we heard from Gartner last year, which we think is pretty telling around the way in which DevOps and DevSecOps is trending. So Gartner recently coined the term Value Stream Delivery Platform, or VSDP, to describe something that provides everything you need to create, deliver, visualize, manage all of your value and, in your SDLC and get it out to the people who need it most. They mentioned in their market guide for DevOps that organizations adopting cloud, agile, and DevOps for digital transformation should be aiming to streamline their software development and delivery workflows. And they recommended that I&O leaders, in conjunction with application leaders, should adopt DevOps value stream delivery platforms to improve that flow of value through the application delivery value stream. And this has always been GitLab's mission. So hearing this come from Gartner is extremely exciting, as it means the rest of the industry has really reached the point where they're recognizing the approach that GitLab takes as a category and a way forward. It's even estimated that by 2023, 40% of organizations will have switched from multiple point solutions to DevOps value stream platforms like GitLab to streamline their app delivery. Right now, we're seeing about a 10% adoption rate. So that's exciting to hear that. So I'm just going to kind of flip quickly back to this slide here and just talk a little bit how customers are choosing to adopt GitLab. It seems to be in a gradual process, starting with use cases where they feel the greatest pain. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of our customers or clients are pretty advanced or mature in the source code management and continuous integration space, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're happy there. So sometimes they'll start with agile project management, but most often it's SCM or CI. And then over time, they're adopting more capabilities in GitLab, including security and continuous delivery. The common theme that we've heard from customers who've adopted is that as they adopt more breadth of GitLab capabilities, they're really uncovering greater and greater value. And having the developer delivery workflow in a single application like GitLab means that the teams are able to collaborate and partner to increase delivery velocity and reduce friction. They're faster, they have less overhead because they're all in one place. And I think it's important to ensure that you appreciate and understand the value that GitLab can bring, not as just a point solution, but as a solution to your end-to-end software delivery cycle. To expand on that, this is kind of GitLab's capability map. So this really just highlights how far they've come in each of the verticals and what's on the docket going forward. But what's important to really note is that GitLab is not in the market to rip and replace what you presently have, right? They recognize that the DevOps tool stack is wide and you may be very well versed and comfortable in some of your tools, and that's okay too. And for that reason, they've invested a great deal of time and effort, research and delivery into making sure that they have robust integrations with some of the applications and DevOps tool sets that are already out there. These are just to name a few. They're very well integrated into the Atlassian stack, touting that for Jira specifically, it's better than the Jira Atlassian integration. They've got they have more robust and more features, more API choices, et cetera. And then Jenkins is another one we very commonly see in place with customers. GitLab has made extensive R&D investments to ensure that they offer proper integration technologies so that customers can truly continue to run Jenkins and leverage it to advance their DevSecOps journey with GitLab. What's also important to note is that while GitLab wants to give their customers everything they need to run DevOps in one place, they don't necessarily want to tell you where that place should be, right? So if you, as a customer, want to run it on your cloud or in our cloud or on an on-prem behind a firewall, maybe on a Raspberry Pi, that's totally up to you. GitLab runs the same software in every location. You get a few more admin features, of course, if you're running a self-managed instance versus a multi-tenanted host instance that might be provided by GitLab. But their core software is the same. So the user experience is the same, and you should be able to run your company and your development teams, your way. This is just a kind of a benefit of running or partnering with GitLab. They're a very transparent vendor, right? It's truly their core, and everything at GitLab is public by default. So their strategies, their roadmap, quarterly goals, issue trackers, handbook, they always want their partners and customers to know what they're working on. And it's one of the things they really pride themselves in. So who's using GitLab today? They have a broad customer base that spans from tech startups like Uber and Stack Exchange to large traditional enterprises across a wide range of industries, such as Macy's, AT&T, ING, and Sony. While many are using the paid version of GitLab, a good subset of them are also using the community edition that's free. But what I think is neat to point out is that many of the logos, even on this slide, are contributing to the code source. And that just kind of shows the community that's based behind GitLab. And while it's great to see who's using the product, what's maybe even more exciting is how they're using it and what benefits have come of that. So 3 different examples here. Axway is a global enterprise software company with over €3 million a year in revenue, and they wanted to adopt DevOps practices, but their legacy subversion toolchain was really blocking them from doing so. So by moving from subversion to Git, using GitLab as their source code management solution, they were able to implement DevOps, integrating GitLab into tools like Jira for issue management and Jenkins for continuous delivery. And by doing so, they really increased their deployments from once a year to every 2 weeks, which is outstanding. And then Ticketmaster, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, they're a global event ticketing leader with one of the world's top 5 e-commerce sites, getting almost 27 million unique monthly visitors, which is wild to think about. And Ticketmaster was using Jenkins for continuous integration. And that was kind of being weighed down by plugins and legacy development. And as a result, their pipeline was taking up to 2 hours to complete. And after getting stuck one evening on a Friday night waiting for the build to complete, their ops team got fed up and started to explore their options. Enter GitLab, and by implementing GitLab, they were able to run their pipeline on a GitLab CI/CD in just 8 minutes for a 15 times increase. And then lastly is Pessler AG. They provide award-winning PRTG network monitoring solution that's used by over 150,000 IT administrators in more than 170 countries. And their QA engineers were manually testing software with a routine set of tasking taking around an hour to complete each time. And by implementing GitLab pipelines, they were able to automate QA tasks requiring only 3 minutes of effort for 120 times efficiency increase, which is pretty cool. So by now, hopefully you're wondering how you can get engaged with or learn more about GitLab. And I'm happy to report that CDI has a team of well-trained engineers and architects that are more than capable of assisting with a number of services in the DevOps space, whether it's performing an assessment and customer strategy, roadmap development, implementation, or migration, integrations. As you saw, GitLab is well-versed to adhere to that. Or even the managed services of your DevOps environment. CDI is here to help, and we really encourage you to reach out and see how we can kind of further your journey. So as some next steps here, I encourage you to reach out to myself or Brian Kennedy or any one of his team members to open the conversation about what you're doing in your GitLab or DevSecOps journey. Reach out for a coffee chat. Hopefully things are getting back to normal. You can have maybe a round of golf to talk about DevOps and what you're doing in the DevSecOps space. But we'd be happy to speak with you, and we really hope that this session today has brought some value to you, kind of educate you on what's going on in the DevOps and DevSecOps world today and how GitLab can maybe help you out there. So thanks again for your time. Hopefully this was helpful, and feel free to reach out at any point. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your time here today. Thanks.